So welcome to Mini Geology. Welcome, Charles, to Mini Geology.
Hey, Daniel, it's great to be back.
Charles, past president of the Aapg, American Association of Petroleum Geologists.
Yes.
Until a couple of months ago?
Yes, July 1st to July 1st. So it's been a great year. I'm excited, and now I have many stories to tell.
So now that you are not president anymore, can you talk more or less?
I can talk as much as I like. It's a wonderful thing. I have the opportunity to share my mind.
Very good, very good. So today we have here Charles Sternbach, past president of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. AAPG, can we say that is the largest association regarding number of members of petroleum geologists in the world?
Yes, I believe so.
How many members?
So just under 30,000, which is a pretty good number.
So there's a non-profit association. It was founded in 1917, and the mission is to foster scientific research, to advance the science of geology, to promote technology, and to inspire high professional conduct. Is that right?
Exactly. And good science, good professionalism, and sharing these topics, helping with members to be better professionals, to do better science, to share it, to communicate it, and to help the public understand it.
So, Charles, you stepped down as a president a few weeks ago, and you have been there for a full year as president, and the year before you were president-elect.
Yes,
right?
Very busy year too.
So what did you change in the association during this year or 2 years period, and what is the difference between the first year and the second one regarding your actions?
So the first year is an opportunity to observe and to prepare and to immerse. And then the second year, the president year, is a year of action. So all of the columns, each of the monthly columns in the Explorer, I was thinking about them during the president-elect year, and they were so much fun to write. We tried to feature topics about things that were happening in the industry. So for me, the thing that I really wanted to do, because it's important to have an agenda, was to focus on the energy renaissance. So we've talked about this before. This is a really exciting time in the energy business because, in a 100-year society, now we're 101 years, we're celebrating our 101st year. Oil and gas and energy has been with us. It's an essential part of our lives. Our mission hasn't changed, but recently there have been a lot of new techniques that have gone back into old basins. We call the biggest ones super basins, and revitalized them. Places like the Permian Basin, the Gulf of Mexico, the Appalachians, and given us new hope and new energy in places that needed some new technology. So
you mean that during the previous years of other presidents, they were not focused on this topic? And you brought it up as a new topic?
Yes.
So what was that practically you you changed during your presidency?
So I wrote about the basins and the focus and the technology in my columns, and then what I was really excited about is we had a conference just 5 months ago in March of 2018 here in Houston, and it was a dream come true. So I took several months during my year as president to plan it, but the concept was to get the best experts around the world on the biggest and best basins. So we had many of the United States basins represented, like the Williston Basin, the Rocky Mountains, and Western Canada Basin, but it had equal number or more international basins. We had Saudi Arabia, we had the Argentina, we had Brazil, we had North Sea, Norway, and Europe's North Sea.
And what was the reaction that you got from the membership or the audience regarding these two things that you did? So the columns that you wrote and the conference that you organized?
Yes. So the reaction was, let's do more of this. So it's great because the conference really was well received. The speakers and the leaders, we had industry leaders, folks who are managers, vice presidents, CEOs, leaders in energy business, saying that they really enjoyed the conference. They wished that a conference like this had been done before, and they were just really excited to share some of their insights.
So tell us what was new about this conference that you thought about in the previous years. What was exactly new with respect to the other ones?
So getting everybody together at one time. It was a totally inclusive conference. So
a plenary session.
Yes. So everyone was in the same room. Everyone heard everyone's presentation. And what was exciting for me is that all of the great people with big insights, people who had been working areas for a long time, 30, 40 years of experience, they only had half an hour to condense all of their information. And they each told me that exercise forced them to really think what was important. And at the end, they were surprised by how they had to really focus on important things. And people who had worked basins for a long time, when they heard some of their insights, they go, I wish I had known that. So it was the ability to crosstalk between many different people, many different basins, so we could learn from each other.
And all of those speakers, they were cherry-picked for the conference. They were invited.
Yes.
So is this also a new formula, to have a conference which is a plenary session with invited speakers?
I like this format. It's not totally new. Aapg, at our annual meetings, have some invited sessions where you get the very best experts invited, but it's only maybe 20 or 30% of the Aapg convention, and then it's very democratic. Everyone can submit to have an abstract, and so it's an open process. But I found that when you know who the experts are from long-term relationships, and then when they hear their friend is in there, then they all want to be in there too. So,
did you have any negative feedback on this conference, on the columns that you wrote?
So I would say that it was too short. We had 2 days, and I think people wish that we could have. We covered an awful lot of ground in a short time. But the good news is that we are doing these types of programs going forward, and so. Before I finished being president in June, I had the good fortune to go to Copenhagen for the European Association of Geoscientists and Engineers, EAGE. They invited me to come and give a session, and so I did. And since it was in Europe, I said, let's do the European basins. So we did European super basins at one of our sister society organizations to Aapg. We did a session after the March conference in May in Salt Lake City for the annual meeting. We had 600 people there. We had Scott Tinker from the Bureau of Economic Geology, who's one of the great luminaries in the industry, was speaking. We had talks on the Middle East and some of the big basins in Texas. And so it's got a great reception, and I've had many requests for more of these kinds of programs. So I'm a busy guy. I'm still doing a lot of programs.
Is there going to be another of these conferences, Super Basins 2?
Yes. At first I thought, I don't know that we can do another one. But then I realized there will be. And this time it's going to be different. The first one was global. The second one is going to be on the Permian Basin of West Texas and New Mexico, which is one of the star basins. It's a prototype for a place that was left for dead. I mean, there was, over the last several decades, the relentless decline of production. Companies were getting out, big companies were leaving, and nobody wanted to be there.
When is going to be this next
January?
Conference? Next January.
January 30th and February 1st. Here in Houston, and it's going to be a Permian Basin deep dive. So rather than go broad like the first conference with a smorgasbord of 15 or more of the world's greatest basins, we're going to focus on one of the golden representative basins and understand everything about it, from the subsurface issues, the geology, the geophysics, the source rocks, but then the surface issues and water and sand and infrastructure and regulations and
multidisciplinary
environmental
at different levels within the geographically standing in the same basin.
Yes.
What about the things that you couldn't change as a president and you would have liked to change?
Well, it's really key, I believe, to just focus on what I really wanted to get done, because Aapg is a big organization. So what I would like to see APG do more of is make more business-minded decisions, because we've recently had the last 3 to 4 years in the energy business has been tough times. The prices of products have been down. There have been a lot of layoffs. It's typical cyclical business. And so APG has had to do a lot of belt tightening. And so one of the keys to do that is to have business models for the things we do. Even though we're a volunteer organization, if we're successful business-wise, it enables us to do the mission better. So I wish that we can continue to change, be more business-focused, and to make some strategic alliances that help bring us up.
So I guess this is like one of the topics of internal debate, the topic that you just mentioned. Can you granulate a little bit more about where is the issue and if there are different schools of thought on approaching this problem?
Yes. So one of the big challenges are that geoscientists work on multiple scales. A lot of our leaders in academia are thinking in terms of many-year scales. And when a lot of our industry leaders that are participating in the society think on much shorter scales. So what we found necessary for the society to be viable is we have to be more business focused, because we're not in high energy prices that enables us to do long scale projects. We have to be very mindful. You mean
business focus or having a business model? So kind of replicating the companies and enterprises rather than the research institutes and science departments.
Right. APG has to be much more responsive to what the members and industry need, because we don't have the long time frames that a lot of that academia has.
And you are thinking economically.
Yes.
Well, can you tell us something about what is the status of the association economically? Is it healthy? Is it sick? Is it stressed? Is it tired?
Oh, my goodness.
What's the status?
We are now at a nice sustainable level. This is a great phrase that my good friend Denise Cox, who is the president coming in after me, sustainability is a really important issue for energy geoscientists, and it's important that our organization is sustainable. So over the last 3 to 4 years, there were difficult times, and we made some tough decisions. There are a couple of things I'm really proud of during my year, and one of them is we made tough decisions. We had to raise dues. We had to cut programs that could not be sustained, that they weren't really bringing results. We made tough decisions, but I think that the budget is at a sustainable level. We did things that are going to make it for the next year and the year after, and as we're getting into the business of the society, which I don't know how much interesting that is to the listeners, but basically it's like any business where we now are going to be able to pay our bills. And so the expenses and the outlays are in line for a nice, sustainable future. It wasn't like that a few years ago.
I think that this is interesting because we rarely talk about these things, and talking so informally with you, with this experience that you have, it is interesting, like talking about how does an association that is non-for-profit finance itself? Where is the money coming from the association? Can you tell us something about it to understand better how it sustains itself?
So volunteers are a very important part of it. And so APG does amazing things to bring people together for networking. One of the things that APG does, I think, better than any other society that I'm familiar with is it brings people around from all different backgrounds, all different nationalities, young, old, and it brings them together so that they can network. And there is a camaraderie where people will give freely of their time and resources. So a lot of what sustains the society is volunteers, and then there's corporate sponsorship. So a lot of the companies also contribute for the worthy goals that APG helps bring conferences and people together to advance the science that has a benefit to the industry. So it's through events. So the number one thing that APG does that really helps pay the bills is we put on events. and these events make just enough money that we can cover the programs that we do. And we do a lot of public outreach. We have the Imperial Barrel Award, which is a program widely recognized in the industry. We take young students that are just starting out in graduate school, and we give them the opportunity to work in teams, to solve problems, and then to compete against the other teams. This is one of when you talk to the students, this is one of the most enjoyable things that they do. It prepares them to be productive individuals going forward. They enjoy the experience. It makes them better.
So this is an example where you, as a university, you put a token in order to participate.
Yeah.
And that helps to finance the association. Together with this, you said that we have the conferences. So when we pay the fees to go to the Aapg annual conference and exhibition, I guess also the memberships paid, or the dues paid every year.
Yeah, 14% of the dues goes to help things.
Okay, and then the sponsors. Anything else?
No, those are the main things. And the publications. And so it just so happens, and I want to deliver this to you. During my year, I was also pleased because not only was I involved in all of the activities of the president, but I had the good fortune to see 2 publications that I worked on come to fruition during this time. So we had a publication about the giant fields of the world, which is a really, it's doing quite well in the bookstore. And it's case studies and analogs. As you and I have talked, Daniel, geoscientists love analogs and case studies. And so we do a lot of publications, but we don't make money on the publications.
Yeah, so the publications we're talking here about an Aapg memoir, in this case the 113, titled Giant Fields of the Decade 2000-2010, edited by Bob Merrill and here Charles Sternbach. Congratulations for the book that I see it printed. It is on the table. This is the book sounding on the table because is a goal achieved. Congratulations, Charles. I know I'm in the middle of the stream now doing editing an Aapg memoir myself. So that was another piece that would ideally, theoretically, help the association through the sales of the books, even though we know that the Aapg memoir, they don't have that much revenue. Is that correct?
No, they don't. But it's one of many things. We give student scholarships. We help with programs like my buddy Bob Merrill, who you had as an interview, talks about Geoscientists Without Borders. Aapg has a foundation that tries to help people who have skills in geoscience go out and help people find water or use geoscience in villages or communities that really need help and that are struggling, some of them in the third world. So Aapg has many worthy goals, but it's through the conferences and the volunteers that we make this happen. So my wife Linda, I say, so now that I have a little more time on my hands since I'm past president, I'm reading memoirs, I'm reading publications, I'm planning super basin conferences. So you may ask, what am I doing with my time? So my wife Linda bought me a subscription to the Great Courses Plus, and I don't know if your listeners have seen that. You can see that for $21 a month, it's like a buffet. All of the courses you've ever wanted, you can buy them individually, but if you get the subscription, it's a little bit like Netflix. So I guess I'm doing a commercial here for Great Courses, but what is great is you can go and you can study all kinds of topics like grand unified theory or physics or astronomy. So one of the things I've been doing is cultural differences around the world. There's a great series of classes, 24 classes, on how each different culture, some cultures value relationships and the family. Others are very focused on time and doing. Others are focused on being. So to me, Aapg is a global organization, and I'm really have enjoyed this class, understanding the different cultural interactions.
I see. And Charles, just to conclude the part about the finance, so my understanding is that the association has to needs to do some conferences or courses or technical workshops to have some revenues. in order to survive economically. But on the other side, the association gives high-quality courses and conferences. So what is that you must do in order to survive, and what is that you would like to do in order to offer high-quality topics for the geoscientist, right? Because it's kind of a loop that feeds itself.
So thank you, Daniel. That's a great question. So in my new role as past president, it's really interesting because now the past president is in charge of strategy and planning the future and getting the future leaders and getting the future officers. And as part of the strategy, okay, so this goes back to the great courses. I'm watching a thing on business strategy. And so one of the things that we're planning for Aapg is one of the first things in any business strategy effort is what do you do better than anybody else, or what do you do that nobody else does? So I was meditating on this. What is Aapg? There are other great societies that bring professionals together in the geosciences, but what does Aapg do? What's the core that, as you say, we must do to succeed financially and to advance the mission? And so my opinion is, as I've thought about this, because I've been very involved in content, is that Aapg brings geoscientists are integrators. So we bring together the geology, we bring together the geophysics, we bring together engineering, and one thing that's very special, I think, is we bring together business. So our other sister societies do specialties. Some focus on geophysics, some focus on engineering, but Aapg is a magical place, in my opinion, where we focus on case studies that use all of the component sciences, and we're the integrative scientists. And as you know, you and I have talked about maps and visualizing and creativity. I think that the Aapg really excels at these kinds of things, and that is our business focus, right? That is our strategy. So we need to do more of that, and we need to look at how we do this in areas where we can advance that. So,
so you say more integration not only among disciplines that they are brothers and sisters, but also among disciplines that they are far away, like integration of business and geology. Like something not as close as geology and geophysics, but as far as engineering and geosciences.
Right. And communicating it. One of the things that I'm really pleased that Aapg does is we have search and discovery, which is a major resource. If you Google different topics about energy, you can find a lot of papers. We have audio-visual material. So there is a great resource of the integrated case studies.
So what are you envisioning for the future? How would you do this kind of integration in courses or workshops or writing articles? How would you integrate this variety and plethora of disciplines?
Yeah, I think on all of the platforms. I think that short courses in our conferences right now, I think there are opportunities for Aapg to really contribute to the space. There are other societies where they have come to us and asked if we can help organize sessions so we can work cooperatively with other groups. So for me, I think this is the thing that we must do, is to share our gifts as geologists and geoscientists to help integrate and put things into a business context, the science, professionalism.
In other words, no more courses or specifics on seismic geomorphology or sedimentology or structural features. Not more of these standalone disciplines, but courses that they integrate all of them.
So it's a mix. So when you look at the attendance, we were having these conversations. What are the programs that people want? So everyone says, well, we ought to do a survey. Well, we have a lot of data. When people show up to conferences and there are 500 or 600 people in a room, they're telling us what's valuable. And so what I think from the APG standpoint is it's important to make sure that we have a lot of what's valuable, a lot of things that pack the house. But I think that we also need to have a mix, because there are other topics that maybe only 30 or 50 people go to, but it means an awful lot to them. So I think it's really kind of a portfolio. If we do all of just what everyone wants to hear and none of the specialty topics, we're losing something there. And we can't do all of just specialty topics or we'll go out of business. So I think that if in my vision, what we need to continue and what we need to do is to build a mix that really focuses on both of those types of things.
I see. So slightly steering towards one direction, not being disruptive, and maintaining also the other good things that are already in place. What about, Charles, about the number of members? What is the goal? Is growth? Is growing in the number of members for the AAPG, or is stability, maintaining the ones that are already in there? How do you see this conundrum? Because depending on what is your idea, the behavior of the society should follow.
So APG is a global organization. We made that decision several years ago. We have offices in about 5 cities around the world. I truly believe that as a global organization, we want to be welcoming and inclusive, because my view is every great geoscientist that joins has an idea. We all benefit from that. And so we want to we want to be a big inclusive organization. So the Times industry, the energy industry, has recently had, over the last 5 years, about a 40% reduction in staff. And APG, like our other societies, have also seen a reduction in our members because we largely follow the industry. So for me, more geoscientists is great because it gives us more creativity that we can share. But to me, that's not the final goal. To me, it's the quality of having meaningful experiences. And the way we know that these are quality is we get good attendance at the programs, and people who are experts in the fields are seeing value in the programs. So I'm more focused. I think it's more important to focus on quality and meeting our goals than just trying to get membership numbers up. If that happens, it's great, but I don't think that's the purpose. The purpose is to be meaningful and relevant. And it's really important to show. One of the things I talked about a lot when I was president and when we were talking with CEOs and vice presidents is that geoscience really matters. So a lot of energy today involves engineering, and so geoscientists have a key role to play. And that's a really important message. And geoscientists have so many more tools. We've gotten much more efficient with computers. So the total number of geoscientists may be not as great, but the effectiveness of the geoscientists who are doing the work is definitely getting greater because of the tools and the knowledge and the way to work together.
Charles, you were talking about the quality. How would you measure the success of the AAPG? So if you want to move it in towards one direction, you want to enhance the quality, how do we understand if we reach that goal? I'm thinking about maybe we should think about the AAPG bulletin having a higher impact factor. That's one idea. Is there anything there that we can look at in order to measure if the quality has been enhanced?
So the APG Bulletin is our flagship publication. It comes out every month. It has some of the late-breaking developments in the industry, and it has a very high citation number. And in academic circles, it's really a great place to publish. It's by citation numbers. It's got very high quality. For me, it's usage. I always think of the geoscientist, and so the metrics that I like to see is how many papers are being read, how many papers are being written. We're having a phenomenal, as our current editor will tell, Aapg has doubled the papers, manuscripts now that it had just 3 to 5 years ago. So people want to be a part of the program. So that's an important metric
but
for
is
us.
the quality higher than in the past because we can have double the quantity?
Yeah.
But is the quality also as good as before?
So I think that the quality is from the citation and those types of numbers is high. But the things that I think we're getting a good signal on is that people want very applied papers, things that are very useful. So that to me was why I really wanted to focus on the things that I knew from conferences that packed the house. So we're going out now and proactively getting papers on basins that are a very hot topic. People are thinking in terms of integrative, big picture, back to the super basins. So if we go to the world's greatest basins in the world, the geoscience, the architecture, the source rocks, the history, these are the things we're recruiting. We have about 15 papers that are going to be coming online in the next couple weeks and months and years into the bulletin. So once again, there's material that's submitted that's reactive because of the reputation, but the proactive nature is just like with the conferences, inviting the best speakers. We're inviting the best papers, and we're inviting papers that I hope are going to have a long-term staying power. The kinds of papers that you go back to again and again and again. The basic geology stays the same, but new ideas, new concepts, new technology is always changing. So we're focusing on those kinds of papers that can have a lasting value. So that is another one of the things I'm pleased that we have done this year, is we're really going out to focus on that.
I see. Charles, you seem very passionate about geology and geoscience, and you mentioned that the managers and top managers, they recognize the importance of geoscience. Are you really sure about that? Do you really see that in the companies, major companies, small companies, independent, the geology is so important, more important than in the past, or is fading away? Because I have an opinion on this. I would like to listen to yours.
Yeah, well, let's discuss it together. So there's frontier exploration, and we just got back from the Conjugate Margins Conference in Halifax. Wonderful thing.
There is, or there was?
There was, but I
no, I mean the frontier exploration.
Okay. Well, I want to put my answer to your question in context. So people are working all along the Atlantic on both sides, the Africa and South America and Eastern U.S. and Northern Africa and up into Europe. So the Conjugate Margins is a powerful exploration. Think about this. If you look at your globe, the Atlantic Ocean on both sides, there's a spreading center. And the basins where many discoveries have been made in Africa are now being made in Brazil and on both sides, and that's working up and down. So to me, those are very geoscience. That is for that kind of work, and I think there are many more discoveries to be made. That is a heavily driven geoscience. So we need to answer your question, there's two components. There is the new fields, and then is the revisiting of the old basins, the renaissance. And part of that is seismic driven, and part of that is engineering driven. So what's happening in these renaissance basins like the Permian is engineering is supremely important, because we're focused. Engineering is optimizing and maximizing, getting the most done for the least amount of money, as my brother-in-law likes to tell me, who's an engineer. So engineers are driving a lot of the wells. But as Scott Sheffield, the president of Pioneer, told me, is that they could not have been a transformative company in the Permian Basin without geoscience. They had to get all of their geoscientists retrained because most of them were very much brought up when I was brought up with exploration mindsets. And so a lot of the techniques of understanding the rock layers, the clays, the shales, what are the components, what are the right landing zones for horizontal wells, what are the frac characteristics, what are the source rock characteristics, what is the maturation, the timing, the charge, all of these things, they come back to geoscience. So can you be a big engineering-driven company with fewer geoscientists and still be profitable? Yes. But if you want to excel, I believe, CEOs like Scott Sheffield have told us that they cannot do it without without geoscientists. There are just some great examples, though, that I've come across where geology really matters. And Luca Bertelli at ENI is a great hero and example to me because there has been a reduction in exploration that we know. A lot of spending has been cut back in exploration, and there's a lot of concern that there's going to be enough energy. But a company like ENI is doing more with less. It's incredible. They have some experts, and I asked him, they have teams that are guiding, geoscience teams that are guiding them to a series of absolutely fantastic discoveries. So I'm not sure if geoscience globally is maybe less than it used to be, maybe so, but there are still, I think, a fair number of companies that recognize the value, and for me, that would be the conversation: is who are those companies? Because we all know the story that in the energy business, in my experience, the most fun companies to work for have been those with innovative geoscientists, creative people running them, and then as you go down through various levels of expertise, it's supposedly geoscientists are better than when you have lawyers or human resource people running the company, because at that point they're managing an asset and they're not necessarily in their highest growth phase. So,
but don't you see that there are always less and less geoscientists leading the companies?
Well, I don't have the stats on that. I've met a fair number of geoscientists that are active in companies. So I don't have the statistics on that, Daniel,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Well, that's the word of the president of Aapg, of the past president, so you certainly have seen more people and more, you are exposed to more realities than anybody else during last year. So I'm glad to listen to your opinion on this topic, because it's something that we geologists really care about, and I feel in the air that there's some something that makes us unhappy about the situation of the last years. Talking about this, what do you think is going to be the evolution of the professional figure of the geologist? If in the long-term future we are going to move away from oil and moving into a diverse portfolio of energy resources. What is your opinion on this? Is the association tackling the problem of the future professional figure of the geologist?
Yeah, so right now Aapg has a conference in Europe on energy transition. And there's a lot of speakers from various backgrounds and expertise. So there's always the question, what are the energy resources and what are the roles of geoscientists in that? One of the things that I feel very strongly about is that oil and gas are going to have a very strong role well into the future. One of the great things of having abundant and affordable energy, you have to think about this. As I was driving here to the KPFT studio, I noticed that at the gas station, the price of gas is $2.49 a gallon as of today's date, which is actually pretty remarkable. That's relatively affordable energy, my friends. So the reason that we have affordable energy is that I've done a pretty good job of finding petroleum and natural gas, and that these fuels have really helped our prosperity. Just to take a moment, we can't, our civilization, our level of prosperity would not be the same if we didn't have energy to warm us in the winter, to cool us in the summer, to give us transportation fuels, or to help make petroleum-based products that we use in everyday life, like our phones and everything. So we have to have energy. So one of the amazing things about this recent energy renaissance, which has really been strongly in the U.S. and North America, is it's given us choices. And choices is great. You have to love choices, because you can choose to have wind energy in your community if you have the wind resources, like a lot of Texas does. We just got back from Nova Scotia. We saw the Bay of Fundy, which was really exciting, and the major tides. They're working on tidal energy, and we wish them luck with that. There are places that have geothermal energy. There are places that use all other kinds of energy. You don't have choices. If you have abundance, you have choices. If you don't have abundance, you don't have choices. And I think one of the really great choices is natural gas is one of the clean burning fuels that is replacing a lot of coal. And industry hasn't done a really good job of talking about this, but the energy renaissance of getting a lot more natural gas is making it possible to replace some other energies, mainly coal, which is not as clean burning as natural gas. And the new techniques have made it possible in the Appalachian Basin. I was just having lunch with a friend of mine who remembered the days where they had about 4,000 wells produce the same amount of gas. 4,000 vertical wells produce the same amount of gas as today can be produced with 4 horizontal wells. 4 horizontal wells can produce the same amount of gas in the Appalachians that 4,000 used to. So that's a much reduced environmental footprint. And so we're seeing a lot of technology.
So what would you suggest to study to a youngster that comes out of high school and he decides to study geology? Which kind of courses should he study? Now that you know, because you have your finger on the pulse of the industry of energy in general to core, what are the courses that you would suggest him to study?
Fundamental geoscience, understanding structural geology, understanding source rock, understanding all of the sedimentology. These are foundational. But then what I think is really critical is putting it together into petroleum systems and integrating. And I would recommend for students to study things like communication and working in teams and these kinds of experiential learnings. These are sort of the types of programs Aapg is sponsoring with the Imperial Barrel Award, where you work in teams to solve real-world problems. And I think that what I'm hearing from recruiters in the energy business, they're looking for critical thinkers, people who can take a lot of data and put it all together, and then people who can work well in teams. And I'm working to create a course that I'd like to present here to one of the local Houston universities on the super basins, so that a student can go and in a few weeks study each one of the top 15 or 20 basins in the world, what makes them great, and kind of an immersive boot camp, so that when they get to industry, not only do they have foundation, but they have how to put it to good use.
So, Charles, do you want to describe this course of yours, or is not ready yet?
It's in progress. It is going to be.
Next time when you have it ready, you're coming here.
I have a syllabus. I have materials, and I am working with local universities to put something together for graduate students. And I wish that this is the kind of course that existed when I went through my training, because I'm working with a group at the University of Houston that is very interested in helping. They have a very large student body. They're trying to help the students be effective immediately. We were talking with somebody who does recruiting at this university yesterday, and she told me that a lot of companies these days want their future employees to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you can just say, "Hey, I'm brilliant, and give me a couple years and I'll get it figured out." You need to be able to demonstrate very quickly. So these are the kinds of things that I hope to work with local universities to make happen.
All right, here we are with Mini Geology, KPFT, HD2 channel. This is Daniel Minizini, your inquisitive geology, here today with the past president of American Association of Petroleum Geologists, Charles Sternbach. And we are at Houston, Texas, in the studios of the High Definition 2 channel. Here we are with the past president of the AAPG. I have here another question for you, Charles. We know that there is a generational gap. Mm-hmm. So we have geologists that they are retiring right now, that they're in their 60s. And there's a gap, and then you find another wave of geologists that they are in the late 30s, early 40s. How do we teach? How does the association, what does the association do in order to teach to this younger geologist? Is there any special approach for this generational gap?
So what's really exciting is that the great things in our industry have almost always come from young people. And the people who are old people now were once young people too. And I've had the good fortune to work with many legendary explorers. And as they've told about the things that they have, major discoveries in both oil and gas and in scientific breakthroughs, a lot of their work happened when they were young people. So I think it's a really exciting thing that we are now seeing. It's a natural progression. We're seeing more young people take leadership roles. We just had our annual conference in Salt Lake City, and I was delighted that more than 3/4 of the organizing staff were in their 30s and 40s. They're not waiting to be asked to take charge. They're not waiting to be invited to take charge. They're taking charge, and it's a wonderful thing to see leaders step forward. So what are the resources that we can give these smart people? And I would say that's one of the legacy, Aapg, the publications. To me, whenever I do anything that I want to create, I always want to look at the brain trust ahead of me. What did they do so I can build on their shoulders? Aapg has an incredible intellectual property legacy of 100 years of smart people writing down their best ideas, publishing them, and having them peer-reviewed. And so any geoscientist that is starting out can build on this legacy. And one of the greats in geology, a mentor of mine, Mike Albury, said, the heritage of the petroleum geologist is the greatest gift that we have, is that the work that others have done. And that is what Aapg promotes, is the recording of the knowledge, so that the next people can kind of take that and start way up the mountain, not all the way up the mountain, but halfway up the mountain, because they don't have to start from the beginning. And that our obligation for this heritage is that each incoming young person has to do the same. They have to go and build for who comes after them.
So you see more of an opportunity, this generational gap, than a risk.
Well, experience is valuable, and everyone wants to get experience as fast as they can. And history is a shortcut to wisdom, as Marlon Downey used to say. So understanding history. So what I encourage young professionals is to learn everything they can from everyone who's come before, and then dare to be great, because the young professionals have the energy, the courage, and the creativity to take us to new vanguards. So I see this as a very exciting thing. Unleashing of human potential is a really, really great thing. And that's why I'm really excited about Aapg being a global organization, because everyone who has something to contribute brings all of us up. And I would like to say that it's amazing when you look at the gender. Let's talk about women entering the industry. I am really excited because as I've traveled around as Aapg president, I've talked to about 1,000 students. I would say easily half of the students are women who are entering the industry. We are doing a lot to support with scholarships, women entering the industry. And so the oil and gas industry has had historically, we have in the, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we have been a historically male-dominated industry. And even much more recently, we see many of our leaders in industry being males. But we're seeing some incredible CEOs step forward. We're seeing women take leadership positions. We're seeing women stepping forward to be leaders in Aapg. Denise Cox is the president of Aapg now after myself. We have a lot of candidates that we're encouraging to come behind. And I think that that's natural. So I think that the future are going to be a lot of not only young people, but a lot of women who are coming in. And this transition makes the workforce a pretty exciting place because it's really all about ideas and who has good ideas. And so,
Charles, what does the Aapg, what does it do in order to affect the policy debates? Is there a task force that tackle the policy debates, or they try to give information or influence?
So we have a series of papers that are online, and some of them need to be updated. So we have policy papers.
You're talking about the position statements?
Yes, and so
those need to be updated because they are 2007, 2011, and that is something that maybe with this hyperdynamic world really needs an update, or at least just to highlight that it remains the same.
So I know that this is a top priority by the current executive committee at Aapg. So this is something that's happening. The position papers are getting updated.
So in the position papers, are those the main tool in order to take part to the policy debates?
For the most part, but Aapg has also had, we've sent groups of geoscientists to Washington, D.C., and in fact, did you get to go to the?
Yeah, I went there.
You went there. Yeah.
Yes, I went there, and I record my experience in here. And there's one show that you can go and see in minigeology.com, and it is titled Washington D.C. and you can listen to that. But these are more kind of sporadic or personal decisions, or even if people they represent Aapg. I don't see it as a tool of the association. There could be something more efficient in order to influence the policy debates for whatever is the idea, sustained and supported by the association. But there could be something that could be done, right? Because this is the largest association of petroleum geologists.
So one of the most effective ways is having conversations like we're having right now and using the media. So I always think of Scott Tinker as being one of our, industry spokespeople who can really communicate. And with his movie Switch and his new movie Switch On that he's working on about energy choices and the implications for energy and helping general public policy people understand the nature of the different energy choices, and I think that Aapg has really working hard to try to have outreach using the media. That's probably the most effective. So thank you for your radio show. Thanks for the chance to talk about this here.
Always welcoming here associations, professors, professionals, presidents, students, teachers, whoever is associated with geology or the geosciences at large. They're welcome to come in here to Mini Geology, the KPFT radio in Houston. We are in Lovett Boulevard, 419 Lovett Boulevard. If you want to come in here, knock at the door. I'm going to open the door with open arms. I'm going to welcome you here. And actually, I'm now looking for students from wherever. If you want to come in here, I'm going to be so glad to give you an open mic and you can express yourself, because people are very powerful when they express themselves, and they are very clear when they do it. So the only thing that they need is a megaphone. So in here we have one. You don't have to use only your Facebook or Instagram account where you talk with your peers, but you can use this platform where we have many other professionals that are making the audience of Mini Geology. You can listen to this show at minigeology.com, which is a YouTube channel. You can write me at minigeology@gmail.com, and you can tweet also at hashtag minigeology. So this is all for now. We had in here Charles Sternbach, past president of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. And so we are very, very happy for this visit. Thank you very much, Charles. And good luck with your future.
Thank you, Daniel. It's always great to be here. I really love what you do. I love that you have this radio program. You help people understand about geology.
Geology.
All right. Thank you, Daniel.
Goodbye, everybody.